Today's show is sponsored by Vasion Print. Technology should drive your business, not slow it down. But legacy print systems are a resource suck. Don't waste time and money managing print when there's a solution. Vasion Print, formerly known as Printer Logic. Eliminate resource-intensive print servers and make the switch to an intuitive, cloud-native solution that makes printing effortless for IT teams and end users. Reduce attack surfaces and secure your environment while enjoying cloud-native flexibility that's easily supported in a hybrid workforce. It's not a patch or a fix. It's a truly seamless solution for print. See for yourself by scheduling a demo at vasion.com. That's VASION.com.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from our massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's Aaron for a quick intro. Before we jump into cloud and AI news for the month of July, some of you out there have been asking about the timing of our recent interview with Astronomer, and I guess it's time to reveal that backstory. We get into that, the passing of the donut torch to the team over at Software Defined Talk, and of course cover our good old-fashioned cloud news and dig into AI and funding in particular as part of the AI news section. And all of that is coming right up after this quick break.
Today's show is sponsored by Do It. Cloud spend is just the surface. What really matters is how it drives performance, reliability, and speed to market. Do It Cloud Intelligence aligns every dollar to the intent of the workloads. Do It is trusted by companies like Fiverr, HackerRank, Current, and Superbet. Do It helps teams go beyond dashboards, surfacing hidden inefficiencies, resolving incidents faster, and aligning cloud operations with business priorities. One platform, unified signals, better outcomes across engineering and finance. Visit doit.com, that's DOIT.com, to unlock intent-aware FinOps at scale. Do It Cloud Intelligence. And we're back for the world's most interesting cloud and AI news of the month show. We got a full house today. Brandon Whichard's joining us as always, and Aaron is joining us as well. Boys, how are we doing today?
Listen, we're doing fantastic. I think we have to start the show first by acknowledging that the Cloudcast made it to pop culture in this last month, right? I have never been happier to see that with all the craziness around Astronomer, again, everyone knows what's going on, the Coldplay cuddling thing, that the Cloudcast doesn't deviate. Aaron, I believe you did this interview, Data Pipelines with Apache Airflow. This was on July 9th. So in the midst of the greatest pop culture tech crossover of all time, you know what the Cloudcast delivered? A straight, informative interview about data pipelines with Apache Airflow. Not a word about cuddling, not a word about Coldplay. Yeah. Aaron, I commend you. You are a journalist. You are on mission. And all the listeners here, don't worry. You get the content that you want. You don't get any of this pop culture stuff. My only question for you, Aaron, was just simply, did you want to call them back before the episode? Aaron be like, hey, maybe just 2 or 3 more questions, just to get them in, just to see if you could touch the viral moment.
Yeah, there's a story behind the scenes that we kind of hinted at, but we never really said it. So maybe it's time. So we actually recorded that episode like 3 months ago. And then published it, and we published it the week before all the kerfluffle came down, or even literally a day or two before it all came down. I can't remember, but yeah, that got super interesting, super quick, because they did what companies like that tend to do. They kind of shut down everything, right? And so we became the lightning rod for Twitter. For Astronomer. How many views, Brian?
Like 500,000 or something
fantastic. Love it. Look at you guys.
The best part of it was, my wife mentioned it to me, it showed up on TikTok or something for her, and she's like, hey, look at this couple, and she was like, in typical internet fashion, people had figured out who this guy was and his company and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't really think much of it. I was like, oh, whatever. And then I was like, God, that name sounds sort of familiar, but I wasn't on the show, so it didn't totally click for me. And I went and looked it up, and I was like, holy shit. Aaron just published the show, right? So, and then Aaron's wife and my wife had gone on a girls trip, or were on a girls trip that weekend while all the stuff was going on. And I'm sending them memes, and every time new stuff comes up. And then, we realized that basically Astronomers shut off their social media. And so we were I guess we were probably the most recent social media post about anything astronomer that wasn't, a meme. And the entire internet came to that tweet. And yeah, let it. So yeah, we got to experience what it's like when the internet doesn't like you for whatever reason. And we were just like, we had nothing to do with this thing. But yeah. good stuff.
Good for you. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
Yeah. So Aaron, I do need to talk. Actually, Aaron and you and I should sort of work through this other one thing just real quickly. Was listening to the most recent software defined talk. Brandon and Matt Ray were talking about, I believe, sort of like tech and tacos and stuff, but donuts came up, and I do feel like you guys did a good job. You covered sort of the uniqueness and weirdness of donuts. I think it was mostly about Austin. I think some donut company got bought by PE. I feel like donuts plus tech was really our block for a long time, and I feel like we've let the audience down because we haven't talked about donuts. I mean, we used to raise money for we used to be good guys about donuts.
Like a 5K kind of a donut. 5K
we did a charity
kind of
thing,
right?
Yeah, we probably raised $30,000 or $40,000 for this children's hospital.
Well, we didn't do anything like that on Software Time. We just talked about donuts.
Yeah, and then both of us decided it was not only terrible for our own health, but we just didn't want to do it anymore. And but yeah, I feel like we've neglected donuts. You guys have sort of picked that up, and it was an interesting crossover. I had a little bit of nostalgia. I felt bad that we had let the donut community down.
No, I feel like it's a torch we passed. I feel like it's a torch. I don't feel like it's a letdown.
We'll happily grab that and run to the closest Krispy Kreme to keep it going.
Yeah. So one last thing before we get into all the cloud and AI stuff. August is finally here. We've made it. The football month is finally here. Where are you with your sort of football enthusiasm, football preparation? Like, where are you in football right now?
Listen, I got all my fantasy drafts going. I've started the research, right? I've already posted the top 25 has just come out. I'm trying to make people in Software Defined Talk Slack, at least in the sports channel, talk about it. I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready to go. I've been preparing all year to sit in front of a TV for 8 to 12 hour stretches and watch as many football games as possible. And I think once again, I trained correctly, and I'm gonna succeed. That's where I'm at. Where are you at, Brian? You're a huge fan as well.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get through the backlog of all of the conference previews. We're now switching from a bunch of tech podcasts to listening to on dog walks to definitely back to football podcasts on dog walks. I feel like I've gotten through a few of the major conferences. I kind of not the NFL yet. Although my team Lions did lay an egg in the very first game, which I feel like shouldn't really matter, but as a Lions fan, I do. There is a part of me that's like, okay,
hey man,
we're back to being
Grit doesn't play in the preseason. That's what we learned. Grit does not play in the preseason. But yeah. For those, I think we all listen to Split Zone Duo. There's a good college football podcast. If you're new to football, want to get the conference previews, you can listen to that one. Check that out after the show.
No. Yeah, there you go.
Let me add to the. So what we did on our side, so we're trying to up our tailgating game here for my youngest daughter. We got season tickets for her school, and we're bringing a little bit of SEC tailgating football to the American Conference. We just bought our second tent as well as one of those battery operated chandeliers. And we're up to probably 10 tables, 3 coolers, a TV, whatever fits in the back of the Jeep, man. We just keep buying more shit to make the tailgate.
Wow, that's almost SEC Grove or the chandelier.
We'll have to post the full setup.
Yeah, we need a picture of that for sure.
So
there you go. Yeah. All right. I like it. You're getting near where you have to buy your own storage just for tailgates for down
that's
there.
Right. That's right. The entire one side of the garage is nothing but the tailgate stuff during the season. So I just can throw it right in the Jeep.
And the best part is that your team, that team is horrible. The tailgate is the most important part of that weekend for those teams. Yes. Well, good. Well, listen, we actually have a decent amount of cloud news this month, but also a ton of AI news. Why don't we start with cloud news? Because, anytime we've got quarterly earnings numbers that come out, that's always a good thing. We always say sort of follow the money. AWS up 17%, Azure up 34%, GCP up 32%. As I mentioned in the weekend show that I just did, this is now the 10th quarter in a row that Azure has not been up 20% or more.
AWS.
Is this
right?
I'm sorry, AWS. Mm-hmm. AWS. Azure and GCP are blowing the numbers away. AI seems to be sort of juicing their numbers, but reason to be concerned over at AWS, or are they just sort of, has AWS sort of plateaued in terms of growth? And, while they're still continuing to lead, Aaron, I think your bet about at some point Azure may overtake AWS. The numbers are starting to move in your direction a little bit. So what do we think about these earning numbers, especially the ongoing, sub 20% AWS trend?
Well, Aaron, that's an interesting bet. But I think the more interesting one is Google to me, because I think the Azure number is always a little wonky because we talked about many times, they include other things in it. So, you can kind of debate that a little bit. But I think the thing here is if AI is truly this disruptive technology as we're working through the hype cycle, as everyone says it is, it would, if you will, allow GCP, I think, to vault itself into like a true competitor, if you will, to Azure and AWS, at least on the revenue front, right? Because they're at 54 billion today. And so that's like, I kind of, one of the things we talk about a lot on the Software Defined Talk is just sort of like, well, like, how will we know? Like, how do we know this is really happening? Is this a fad? Is something? And I think you can look, I think GCP is a reasonable proxy because AWS, we can talk about it, doesn't really have their own AI solution. Maybe they're partner with Anthropic. Azure's kind of like tied up with OpenAI, sort of together, sort of not. But Google is, if you will, they created all of this. They have a legitimate, great model, Gemini. We can debate where it is. But if this is truly disruptive, then maybe this is the thing that vaults GCP into maybe displacing the number one or number two on the numbers. And I think it's going to be a fun thing to track. So that having said all that, I'm still a little skeptical, right? I'm still like, not totally like, I'm not like, if you listen to Ben Thompson, he's, I think, all in on Google Cloud, right? It's sort of that. And and I still kind of think, and I think, Brian, you had a great line that I'm going to use and from your recent Sunday episode where it said something, these workloads are there for a reason. The workloads just sort of sit on premise and it's just like, they're not going anywhere. And I think GCP may run into that same kind of thing as it kind of vaults up this growth curve. I don't know, Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I've been rooting for Google for years, and they seem to have an early lead for the AI stuff, and then they kind of flopped again, and then now they're seeming to make a comeback. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like every time I'm like, oh yeah, GCP has a chance. I mean, I feel like it's like Charlie Brown trying to kick the football kind of scenario. I'm just waiting to be tricked. So I don't, no matter how much I want to trust it, I don't trust it. But if you just kind of look at the landscape, I mean, of those major three clouds, do you just take Gemini even at face value of what it is today? I mean, it's far and away better than what the others are offering right now. Of course, I mean, Azure has the, what they're doing with OpenAI, and it's kind of a on again, off again relationship with OpenAI and Azure. But I mean, you kind of look at AWS stuff, and I know they're trying, but I mean, I just can't point to anything and kind of go, that's the key thing that's really going to move the needle for AWS with AI going forward. Yeah, so that's my biggest thing.
I think the thing that's starting to sort of, I don't know if it's becoming clear to me, but it feels like it's becoming, one of the things that'll sort of define this next sort of era of what's going on with cloud. So, the first era was sort of like, how much of the stuff in the cloud will be, we moved it to the cloud. We saw lots of like VM migration and, kind of just lift and shift and so forth. It was never really kind of broken out about like, well, how much of the cloud revenue is really that versus, lots of new stuff, right? Lots of new applications being built, startup funding going into AWS, all that kind of stuff. And it does sort of ask the question of like, will the next generation of the cloud be driven by your applications are currently in this cloud and therefore you'll add AI to it, or you're doing AI in this cloud and you're going to start sort of building or moving AI, moving applications to where the AI sort of is, right? The thing that now seems like it provides some sort of betterness, whatever better means, right? Faster, more intelligent, whatever. And it feels like Amazon is basically betting that because they have this big installed base, they have this big, center of gravity already, that the natural thing will just be, well, you'll just build where your data is or build where your applications are. And it does feel like, given how fast Google has grown over the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, we used to, it was kind of a laughing stock. It was never profitable, whatever. And we're now seeing them 30%, 40%, 35%, 40%, up to $54 billion. It does sort of beg the question of like, is are we seeing this sort of next thing that's shifting this, especially if, sort of shadow AI might be driving that as opposed to, the old way of doing cloud. So I think that's sort of an interesting thing to keep watching because, like Aaron said, Google Cloud has always been a little bit of like, I don't totally know if I totally trust it, but they do have the distinct advantage of all three of those folks. They have the most GPUs. They've been doing GPUs longer than anybody else. They have their own TPUs that are starting to get used for a bunch of stuff. They know how to monetize GPUs because every search now comes with some sort of Google assisted, thing that the rest of them just kind of don't have at scale that they do. So I feel like the way that we used to talk about like AWS's infrastructure being this huge advantage, it does feel like Google's infrastructure and them having that deep AI expertise is starting to feel like their new advantage that, never used to monetize itself, but now seems like it is.
Brandon, let me kind of ask you a follow-up question on that, because based off of day job customer conversations, the biggest hindrance in all of those is like cloud egress charges. And if you feel like I want to go from one cloud to the other, even if the services are better, so a lot of times the costs are too much. Are you seeing a similar kind of thing over? It's like at the end of the day, is it just data gravity all over again?
I can't say that I've seen that being the inhibitor. In fact, I saw for the first time, I saw someone ask a question about migrating from Azure to GCP. And I was like, wow, that's like one of the first ones I've actually seen. And I think I feel like the charges, like all these things are manageable if there's a compelling reason. And I think it just kind of comes back to they're outside of your company doesn't want to do business with like Amazon, like you're a retailer and there's a conflict or something like that. I haven't seen, there isn't like some technological reason I think anyone has identified to move between these clouds, at least in a big way, right? Maybe you want some multi-tenant, maybe you're a little bit worried about single point of failures, but I haven't seen that today. So this, back to kind of the original question here, it's sort of like, it will be interesting if people feel like, well, actually the AI stuff that I want or that I need is in GCP. And I actually do want to move workloads there. And I actually want to take some workloads from Azure and AWS and put them there. Right. And so, I can't say I've seen that today. Right. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if it comes out of, see what comes out of it. And I think, Brian, I think you made such a good case about like sort of like AWS, like day two, right? The day two thinking. Now as I was listening to your episode, I was thinking to myself, well, the way Amazon could be in the winning, or AWS could be in the winning position, right? It's just sort of like AI is more of a fad, right? We're in the middle of the hype cycle, and ultimately it is going to play out. That the way they think of it is like they're not going to spend. They haven't, nor are they going to spend, like you mentioned on the show. They're not going to spend $150 billion to buy Anthropic, right? They're going to sit out the huge, if you will, cost of this. And at the end, if they're right in the sense that and to say it's a fad is maybe too strong. It's just sort of like maybe it's an incremental technology that's just a nice add-on to all the things you do. They could be smart, right? We could be saying like they're the ones that were disciplined, they were financially smart, they didn't waste a lot of money, and they come out on the other side of this as being, if you will, with no hangover from it. So that would be sort of like, I think almost like the Jassy case, right? But now as we sit in the middle of this, we're like, well, it seems like you're missing out, right? Same thing with Apple. Like we kind of feel like right at this very moment, we're like, you guys are definitely missing out. But I don't know, it's just, we never know these hype cycles. You just never know how these things are going to play out.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing is the one thing I think we sort of forget sometimes is we want to make this sort of binary, and we forget the fact that all of these guys. I mean, I had to go look up when I was doing the Amazon thing. Like Amazon's sitting on $200 billion worth of cash. Like all of these folks have the resources and they have decent enough size moats, whether it's directly in this business or it's indirectly in something else. I mean, just think about the conversations we've had over the last 2 years. Like we thought, Microsoft had it all figured out. We thought Satya Nadella had it all figured out. He'd done the thing. Now he's wrapped up in the Sam Altman. What's going on with that? You've got, Amazon, having missed a few things. I mean, 3 years ago, you'd have been like, there's no way the person that is running the biggest cloud in the world, first ballot Hall of Famer is going to fall back. And now it's like, they've sort of slowed. Like, so I think these guys, they ebb and flow a little bit. They make some mistakes, but they have so much money, they can make up for some of these things. I mean, even you look at like Meta, changed the name of their company. And now they don't even talk about Meta anymore. And we're still back to being like, oh yeah, they're pretty damn good at AI. And oh by the way, they just, their market cap went up $700 billion this last year or this last quarter because they, have been making a bunch of money, selling ads using AI to help it. So, I think we're so used to companies being smaller and us being like, oh no, they're screwed now. It's binarily, they're out. I feel like, give somebody 6 months, 9 months, and a little bit of boldness, they might be able to get back into some stuff. So, and
to your point, I just think a company won't talk about it as much as VMware, but like, I don't know, VMware's probably never been more valuable, right? They're like, they've raised prices. I know Broadcom, but I still think like VMware it's still doing well. Like, I mean, people still using VMware. They're probably mad. If anything, people are mad that it costs too much, right? It's like, it's not like this, like, I think, I don't know, you go back to like Kubernetes and containers, everything's going to be disrupted. VMs are going away. It's like, I don't know. VMware seems as good a business now as it's been probably ever. And it's just like, it just continues on. So the same thing with AWS, like it's not going anywhere. It's just like, it may not grow. And it is always fun to speculate, like who could, if you will, dethrone them. It would be I will say this though, it will be something like this. It will be something that turns the Amazon values on its head, right? Amazon's so famous about like, we are customer focused. We only build things that customers want. Well, what would displace that? Something no one's even thought about. And it was these chat bots, right? And it's like that, you could write the story of like, this is your blind spot. So will that happen? I don't know, but that it will be something like this that attacks AWS.
Right. Well, let's jump over to the AI side of things. So I think that the takeaway from the interesting thing is we used to be very used to being like, oh, it's summertime. There's not going to be a lot in the summers. We talked about this before we were talking on the show. It feels like every month, one of these folks is taking a massive super round, to the point where, people are now sort of asking like, where's all this money coming from? And what happens if stuff doesn't necessarily all pan out the way it is and so forth? Like there is a lot of folks who are now kind of probably coming to a realization of like, hey, why do people keep talking about Meta and Cisco or NVIDIA and Cisco in the same sense? Why are people now talking about, the internet bubble, which was 20 something years ago? Are you guys starting to see any more conversations with people kind of asking like, hey, it's not a matter of like, does this stuff work? Will it kind of work? Will it, but like, are you seeing more people that are worried about, bubbles, about some of those things? Because I'm starting to see more and more of those articles being written, just as, what feels like a counterbalance to, the fact that some numbers came out this last month. Basically, there was more investment in AI in the last quarter than there was all of U.S. consumer spending. All U.S. consumer spending, like everything. Wow. So, are you starting to see a little bit of that, or is that just kind of the normal media counterbalance to there's a lot of plus over here, so therefore let's build up a bunch of sort of minus over on the other side of the ledger?
I think we're definitely seeing this. I think you're seeing more and more, and I think using the Gartner hype cycle, we've had this conversation before around are we at the top of inflated expectations? And I think what happens is just I think everyone sees value in AI, me included. It's just sort of like, at what point, at what number, right, is it so disconnected, the valuation from like what's a reasonable, if you will, productivity gain or payback, right? So, you got in here right now, OpenAI is worth $300 billion and Anthropic's worth $150 billion. It's like, it's not to say these numbers out loud. It's insane, right? It's almost $500 billion. We're not even adding up the other one. So it's like, well, that seems really high. But what if we doubled that? What if we're like, they're worth $1 trillion? Is that too much? What if they're worth 10 trillion? Like there's just some number, right? Where everyone's sort of like, at some point, the junior investor banker shows up with like the discounted cash flow model, right? He's just like, guys, I know we're not doing this anymore. I know we're not using this, but this number, like I can't even compute it on my spreadsheet. The multiple's $800 billion on this, right? So there is, and I think that's kind of going back to the .com bubble, like, there is this collective, frenzy in this moment where everyone's like, well, even if it said it could do everything it could do, it's still not worth what this is, right? And but this is the weird thing. Like it could play out for a long time, right? As long as we all just believe, right? As long as the AGI dream is out there. And I do think I like to think about like kind of signposts. What could we look at? I think the next version of the OpenAI model, I think it's 5.0 or whatever, 5. I'm sure they'll give it some weird name.
Yep.
I think we can all, because we all touch these things now. It's like, I think we all use 5 and we're not like completely blown away. We're like, oh my God, they did it again. The thing is even like, it's 10 times better than 4, right? I think that's going to be the moment where we're like, okay, wait a minute. Like we've been playing with, 3 was like a lightning rod out of nowhere. 4 has been really great. And it's a lot of improvement, especially with coding. If 5 is just an incremental improvement, we're like, maybe we're a little further away from AGI than we think. Now, the opposite could be true too. If it takes a giant leap forward. But so I think again, signposts, like we need to see something like pretty great to start to justify these valuations. Otherwise it's just going to get crazy. Aaron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think what you're describing there is the typical trough of disillusionment, and what's going to make the trough of disillusionment kick in, is going to be this, oh my gosh, we used, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars to make this next generation of model, and it's not performed all that much better. Like we are going to get diminishing returns before too much longer, if we're not already starting to get there. And so I think that is is when it's going to hit in hard, because then it is going to be, hey, we've put in all this money. What's going to be the ROI now, if ever? But to kind of back it in, though, because I know we talked about it, especially in the startup space and emerging tech, a lot of times on the show, the whole idea of like, we've always kind of said who's going to be the category king and who's going to be, like next in there. And I think those are it's already OpenAI and Anthropic, and maybe you throw Gemini in there. But I mean, at the end of the day, you're never going to have room for more than 3 or 4 who's going to win. Well, the winner's already there. It's just a matter of everyone else needs to like lose and drop off. And we haven't seen that big consolidation yet. I think there is going to be a reckoning that's going to be coming. And so what may happen is the trough of disillusionment kicks in, then the money starts to dry up, and then the money only goes to the category king people or the folks at the top. And, that's how this is going to go out. In the end, it's just a matter of, how it's going to play out. I mean, we've seen way too many emerging tech curves over the years, and the money's just a lot bigger than it was before.
You, Aaron, to stay in the AI sort of side of things, you've been loading up our list of content with every article being written about which jobs are getting replaced here. We've got middle management is dead. We've got 40 jobs that are being saved, 40 jobs that are going away. We've got AIs wrecking the job market. Like, what conversations are driving all these things for you to obsess over what's going away?
Well, so it's actually, it's funny to say this, but I mean, it comes to having lots of conversations with the girls. One is in grad school and the other one's about to be a junior in college, and I mean, them and their friends are literally having these conversations on a regular basis of like, what do I go into? We've had friends change their majors, and like just having lots of conversations like for that younger generation. It's been super top of mind and something I've just been exposed to a lot lately. And so, I found that to be an interesting angle around all of this. And then, you kind of go look at some of those of like, hey, these are the top jobs that will benefit AI, and here's the top jobs AI will, kill, and then here's the ones they're never going to touch. But I don't know if you guys looked at that list, but the ones they're never going to touch, I mean, it was a borderline comical list. Like you just have to kind of go look at some of them that are in there, but you're like, yeah, of course it is. But yeah, I mean, that's what the conversations came from.
Yeah. I did find I was, I don't know if you guys deal with this very much, but if you go to any places where you're not hanging around with techies, so you're not going to conferences, you're not, in the office or whatever, and people ask you what you do, you tend to sort of be like, okay, well, how do I explain this in some way that's like really, really simple? And, I have found that from time to time, I'll be like, well, I kind of work on technology, and they'll be like, oh, well, what kind of stuff? And, somewhere like the AI thing will kind of come up, or you try to sort of downplay it because you're never really sure what anybody. But anytime I've found that anytime I'm mentioning it to folks who, aren't sort of in our world, right? They could be a teacher, they could be a farmer, they could be a whatever. Like you're starting to get some very distinct sort of glares and like, that's you, huh? So yeah, I see the same thing. My kids are sort of asking, what should they work on, and what did it, but I think we're also starting to see some some negative animosity amongst just regular folks who, whether it would impact their job, whether they are in a save the job or displace the job thing, like there is becoming a very sort of regular everyday person negative connotation to like, why are you guys doing all this stuff? Or what is all this stuff actually, turning out to be, like where's that going? So yeah, I can see that becoming a regular ongoing conversation around the dinner table at like Thanksgiving or something like that. All right. I want to talk about one more thing. And Brandon, I want to kind of get your 2 cents on this. I'm going to kind of come back to Amazon again. Actually, going to come back to Andy Jassy and AWS. If you read through the transcript, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes. I talked about it in the last show, but I didn't get into this part about as much. People, people were asking about, where their strategy's going, and it wasn't necessarily all their AI strategy, but he basically said 85 to 90% of global IT is still on premises, which I feel like that number floats around depending on how big a market opportunity he still wants to have, or how big he wants to say AWS is. But he kind of goes into this thing where he says, you got a lot of legacy infrastructure, you've got to move, you got mainframes, you got VMware instances, you've got .NET Windows, .NET Linux. And he kind of implies this idea that like one of their new AI agents is just going to drive, all of these things. It's going to make migrations infinitely simpler. And I'm curious, for somebody who has a whole bunch of experience doing migrations and, has been doing this for quite a while, is there anything in the agent space above and beyond just kind of standardization and automation that makes you think that agents are now going to sort of magically be able to do anything that these migration practices that lots of companies have set up is going to do? Like, is it an accelerant, or is it just another placeholder for like, what something could do?
I think, I just kind of come back to it. It's just another form of automation, right? It's been out for a long time. There's Azure Migrate, and AWS has a set of migration tools, and I could spend an hour talking about all the different tools that are out there. But I think, like I say this a lot. We always say like, migrations are like 80% process, 20% people, right? And it's like, until such time that like the agent can like write the custom run book for the migration, and it knows how to check that everything's good, that it knows how to notify the stakeholders of a problem, or when it's going to happen, or how the cutover is going, or how the actual VM. So it's like, the joke is like, if you're just migrating one VM, like, okay, anyone can kind of just hit the button, it copies over, and so be it. But when you're doing these large scale migrations or modernization, right, it's like, okay, .NET Windows to .NET Linux. It's like, listen, if you haven't used Cursor or you haven't used, Claude, right? It's like, they're great. They do a lot of it, but you have to be watching these things, right? You can't, this idea that you just tell Claude to like convert it over and don't do anything. It's like, no, you need somebody that's watching this and knows what's happening and run the test and see what's going on. So, while I think it could be faster, right? I think Claude and these things can do it faster. All the other things are going to still take as much time. And I think even some of the surveys we're seeing now around coding, which seems like the absolute ideal place for AI, the place that's been most widely adopted. I mean, you're only seeing, improvements of like 10 to 20%, which we can say, wow, that's incredible, right? 10 to 20% is a meaningful number. Right. But at the same time, that's a far from like lights out, everything's automated. I just tell it at the end of the night when I'm tired, I'm like, migrate the data center. And then I get up in the morning and the whole data center has been migrated. I mean, that's fiction, right? It's just not possible. And I think the more that we use, and this is kind of back to that 5.0 model I was talking about before, like I like all of these tools. I enjoy them. And I think they are make me more productive. And I think they're just fun to use, which is like fun to be at work and doing fun things. Having said that, though, right, the idea that you would just turn them loose, because it's anyone spending more than an hour can see these things make mistakes, right? And you have to correct them. It's not that complicated. So the idea, and this is, I think, a real disconnect, right? I think kind of back to your jobs conversation. It's like, I always like to say, it's like maybe AI is a test. You can just see an AI, whatever you want, project onto it. If you're a manager or CEO, you want to do cost cutting, you say, we're going to cut costs, right? But it's like, no, it just doesn't work like that. It's like when you really get hands on, like you need to be watching it. So it's kind of back to, what I would tell people is like, probably if you're interested in technology, still go into software engineering. It's like, you just need to like learn all the tools, but like spend the first few years in college not using the tools to learn the fundamentals so that you can be the person watching, if you will, if it's doing it correctly, because that's going to be needed. I mean, that I believe, until proven otherwise, you're going to have people watching these and using this stuff in a very skilled manner. So happy to be wrong. If it comes out, AGI is here, 5.0 doesn't make any mistakes, I will be the first to come on this podcast and tell you I was wrong. But we're not there yet, and I think we're pretty far from that right now.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think there is a disproportionate amount of value in experience and expertise and having lived through some stuff that is getting vastly underrated by all these lists of things that AI is going to replace. It is going to be a little trickier to maybe get up to speed, but at the same time, you should be able to learn some things pretty quickly.
And I'll throw out one more, just because we talk a lot about like the technology and the migrations, but like everything we can experience, right? I was just looking at filling out back to school season. You guys are in part of it. Like you're filling out a lot of forms probably for your kids, for your family, whatever, right? What's simpler than like, here's all the information. Like, here is all my information. Everything is available on my computer, right? About all the things. So it's like, put all of this in the PDFs correctly in the right place and get that sent to the institution of record that needs it, whether it's a school, a university, health, right? And it's like, who's doing? No one's doing that. Everyone is editing the PDF, or if my wife, she just like hand writes it, right? She's still just handwriting stuff out and signing things. It's like, when is that coming? Like, if that's great, we're doing AGI, but when am I not going to have to fill out any more forms? Like, it's a very simple task, right? And it's like, I'm still filling out as many forms. I'm actually filling out probably more forms than I've ever filled out in my entire life right now. And that to me is like just a good sanity check. Like, when are we just going to fix this? Like, I don't care about restaurant reservations. If I see one more demo making a restaurant reservation, it's like, I'm old, man. I'm busy. We have stuff to do. What I'm doing is I'm filling out arbitrary school forms that are sent to me all the time. Solve that problem. Never see a demo of it. No one's working on it. So again, let's just look at like some simple use cases before we take over the world. Let's just get the forms done first.
Yeah, it does make you question, like, who's behind Big Form, who's lobbying to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen the same way that like Intuit's lobbying that we can't get our taxes done for free. There somewhere, Brandon, there is that might be a good investigative piece for you guys to do over at Software Defined Talk is, who's holding this back,
Well, you said it. I mean, that's a long running joke. And I guess someone's here, a funny tentpole that I like to talk about all the time. It's like, at least here in the United States IRS, right? We're still doing our taxes manually. It's like, what could be a better use case? Like, I don't know how many millions of tax returns that are not processed. It's like always millions. We could look it up, but it's like, why isn't AI getting all of that done? It's literally, there's money sitting on a shelf, metaphorically, right? It's like, just get all the returns done, right? Like, when is it all? And it's like, never. It's just every year goes by. Every year, I'm actually paying an accountant, right? I mean, I'm always like, it's complicated. I don't know how to do it, right? I've gotten to the point. And so it's like, when is that? And it's always like, it's gonna go away. And it's like, when is it? I don't know. And 30 years from now, will I still be? I would guess I'll still be doing some type of 1040 tax return and being like, how is this not fixed? So that's another good one.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to bring this all. Aaron, did you want to jump in?
No, I was going to say, Brandon, quick question. So I had somebody tell me this recently. Like, there was like this whole conversation about how to think about AI and how to classify AI. And I thought this was a pretty spot on analogy. They said, think of AI as a know-it-all intern. Like, they think they know freaking everything, but they do at best junior level to intern level work when kind of left to their own devices. And I was like, oh, and actually in my experience, that seems about right. Totally. But I was just wondering, like you probably play around with the most of all of us, but I mean, that's the way I look at it is like, yeah, if you were managing a bunch of interns, that's how you think about AI.
Yeah, totally. And I think you just leave it on, like, I think what's good today, I mean, to leave it on like what composition and coding, right? Like, if you want to create a new document, like write something good, nothing better than a really rough first draft you write, put it in, let AI help you edit it. It's fantastic, right? It's your thoughts and it's like cleaning it up. It's making all your English good. Same thing with coding. You want to do this thing, great on that. Those things are fantastic. And I think that's a place that we can see real value. Now, is it worth $350 billion or $450 billion? We shall see. But that's going to be next month. I'm sure all these questions will be answered on next month's Cloud News of the Month. So.
That's right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with one last thing. We don't have to necessarily discuss it, but I do want to put it out there. I'm going to kind of bring it full circle since we talked about, like fantasy teams and people doing recruiting. There is a very detailed Reddit thread that lists out all of the people that got recruited to the Meta Super Intelligence team. It does feel like the beginnings of, what is, fantasy football and all sorts of tracking of stuff. I'm hoping, given the potential boom and bust that might happen in the AI over the next, 6, 12 months, could be 3 days, could be 2 years, who knows, that there becomes sort of like fantasy AI GMs, fantasy AI, leagues. I think people need to be tracking who the next great researcher is, the next person who's going to figure out how to do this stuff. But I am glad that they're tracking it, they are tracking it like they do, NFL teams and NBA teams and stuff. So if anybody's curious who those folks are, go take a look at that list.
Well, not only that, I think what we really want, and maybe the Cloudcast should do it, is I want the 30 for 30 in 10 years of this, right? Sure. I want someone documenting all of this, what the recruiting pitches were like, what the packages were like, the crazy stories behind the scenes, what worked, what didn't work.
Where are they now?
Yeah. Where are they now? Who took the money? Who stayed at the who's a true believer? I think that's going to be a fantastic documentary for someone to make.
Yeah, man, now that I think about it,
I can already see
there's so much
Google
money.
DeepMind and then Meta, the super intelligence. You've got all these teams and organizations and the history of them and all the. You can
write that thing right here. It's what have I told you? Mark Zuckerberg spent $8 billion on people. And here's what happened, right? And then you play the music, maybe get Bill Simmons to he'll be probably all retired, not doing anything in Spotify. We'll get him to help us do it. So it'll be fun. It'll be super fun to see what's going on. But maybe that's a good place to end too. It's hey, remember all this AI stuff and AGI? Just remember the people that thought that we think know the most, right? And they were at places that were building AGI. The people that thought the most, and they're like, you know what? I'll leave here if you pay me a lot of money. Right. So maybe that's a clue that the people closest to them didn't necessarily think success was imminent at the places they left. Right. Could be a little canary in the coal mine. It's we're working on AGI. It's going to probably be out next week. Here's a lot of money. Why don't you come over here? You know what? I'm going to go over there. Maybe we're not as close as we once thought. So fun to watch.
There you go. Well, let's wrap it up there. Guys, as always, thank you for, wide-ranging discussion. A lot of good stuff. Folks, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend. And we will be back again next month for more Cloud and AI News of the Month.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.